Hads, let's get to playing the Windies. You made your test debut. You played 8 tests against the Windies, won 6, drawn 2. You came in just after the absolute golden era of West Indies cricket, but they were still a challenge, I dare say. When you played them, your first ever test, Kingston, May 2008. Firstly, who gave the Baggy Green?
Yeah, well, I got my Baggy Green presented by Ricky Ponting. It was good. Kingston, mate. Yeah, that was pretty good. He had some nice words to say, and it was a bit different for me, actually, the first time against the West Indies, because you've grown up watching how intimidating they were, and you watch the golden era, and we probably haven't seen that from West Indies for a lot. We haven't seen that from a long time. Their Test cricket's declining, and that was probably the start of my Test career was their decline. Actually, where 2020 cricket and white ball cricket became much more of a focus of for the West Indies. But yeah, I still had my debut in 2008. My family couldn't go any further across the world, but I remember. My family was sitting in the stand, and that side of the stand were really, really relaxed. And I remember speaking to my brothers after day one. He said, "I tell you what, where we're sitting, I don't know what's coming out of that groundsman's shed, but all we wanted was Doritos, and we were really, really, really relaxed." So yeah, mate, they had a good time, the family there. But I tell you what, they weren't as nervous as you'd think in your test debut. But I don't know why.
I've seen a picture of that ground, and like it's one of those where you got a plunge pool in the outer. Now, there's a few cricket grounds around the world who have this right now, and generally speaking, it's not the most intense atmosphere if you've got one of those in the outer. Put it that way.
No, I tell you, the pool was something that was your first seen in the 2007 actually World Cup, where the run was flowing and they had a good time over there. I actually seen Merv Hughes and his tour group jump in there. That soon got rid of a bit of the water, but we've actually sung a couple of team songs.
Really?
Yeah, we've taken them once everyone's left the ground. We've gone over to the pool and banged out a couple of team songs. So yeah, it was the atmosphere of the West Indies in the early days. And the 2007 was a perfect example. The crowds really got into it. There was swimming. As I said, they were really, really relaxed, and we'll go into that later. I'm not too sure why, but the music was always pumping, and it was a really probably 2020 style atmosphere before 2020 had really arrived. So the West Indies got into it.
Geez, your game going in one of those pool at the end of the day, it looked like a stormwater drain after a biblical storm. The quality of it. Yep. Anyway, hey, your first test innings, you come out against the Windies. So, yeah, okay, it's not Ambrose and Walsh and co that you're facing, or Garner and Marshall, but, they'd have their tails up and things are going okay for them. You walk out and Andrew Symonds greets you at the crease for your first ever test innings. What were the words of wisdom from Roy? And did you take it in, or were you too nervy?
I remember walking past Roy and he just looked at me and he called everyone Joe. So I just
Why?
Walked past. Oh, I don't know. And I walked past and he just goes, "Joe, enjoy." And went back to the non-strikers. But you know what? When you really think about it, you don't want a lot going through your head when you're walking out for your first test run anyway. You got head noise there. Anyway, you're thinking, where's my first run going to do? Am I going to get a duck on debut? And I just remember just hitting one to mid-on and running and knowing Roy the way I did and playing a lot of cricket. I opened my mouth and nothing came out. So he ran, I ran, and I got off the mark. I think it was off Bravo. I just tapped one to mid-on and got to the other end as quick as I could. But, Joe, enjoy.
Yeah. Yeah, Andrew Symonds, one of the greats at just keeping it very, very simple. And I couldn't stop laughing the time that I did a commentary stint with he and Darren Lehman. And
oh yeah,
and Roy would call Darren Lehman Darryl the whole
Darryl,
time.
yeah, Uncle Darryl,
Uncle Darryl. Oh, I don't know about that, Uncle Darryl. And he'd say that in commentary. It was hilarious. It was so dry and so fun. When you score your first Test run, Hads, no matter where it is, when you score your first run in any game, there's this kind of feeling of an imaginary weight lifting off your shoulders. But I can't imagine what it's like at Test level when you finally get off the mark.
Relief.
Yeah.
It's just all about relief. You just don't want to get a duck in your first test. So
No.
I think I only got a dozen or so in my first test. But once you get off the mark, they can never take that first run or the first catch away from you.
Absolutely. And then you became, you weren't as relaxed as your family in the outer, but, you know, it...
Definitely not that relaxed. I remember. Oh, sorry. After the game, it was a great introduction to Test cricket. Because Johnny Howard was there. He came in for a beer afterwards. Your family came in, so
yeah,
it was. You're just going, wow, how good's this?
Yeah, excellent. A few other good battles. You watched Chris Gale go nuts in Adelaide and Perth in the 2009 series. Ricky Ponting was forced to retire. Now, you've always said that Ricky Ponting is one of the toughest blokes you've played cricket with. Kemar Roach got him with one, and he forced him to retire. Could you believe what you were seeing?
Couldn't believe it. And everyone was sort of in a bit of shock when Ricky came off. To see someone had the stand in the game that Ricky did, but how tough Ricky Ponting was. He'd stand in front of the best, wouldn't give an inch, mate. You remember early days in his Test career, he didn't even wear a helmet. I remember Mohammed Shami from Pakistan, I think, got him in the jaw. And he didn't flinch. So when he got hit in the arm, we were all going, hang on a minute. This young kid's bowling some gas, and this arm of Ricky Ponting is not going to look good when he gets off. So I think it just hit a nerve, and everything went numb. So he went back out there. But he was quick, Roach, then. And I remember batting with Doug Bollinger, and he ended up running himself out, actually, in the first innings. And Roach was getting up around 150, and the ball was reversing. And I said, how you going? He goes, I'm not facing him. I said, you might have to face a couple of balls, Doug, but we'll see if we can get a couple more runs in his first innings, and end up running himself out coming back from two. He's never in the game. It was always going to happen.
Oh, dear. With the Windies, and they always seem to have these young, quick bowlers, but then as soon as they come onto the scene, they go away. Now, you mentioned it before, the trouble with a nation like the West Indies is that the central contracting, they can't stick them to Test cricket, and they go off contracting around the world T20, which is fair enough. They've got to furnish their lifestyle and their lives and help their families out. But is there natural talent still coming through with West Indian cricketers? It's just times change, and that's what's stopping them from being at the top?
I think what's stopping them from being at the top is their appetite to play four-day cricket. They're still as athletic as anyone in the world. You watch them move in the field, you see the power when they hit the ball. But I think it's just the appetite to play four-day cricket. They've seen 2020 and one-day cricket as a real lifestyle and a form of the game that suits the way their mentality is. I tell you, the hardest West Indian I've ever faced, and it takes you back to watching Mark Ward, Border, Taylor, and guys like that. You think, wow, this was different. I played against Joel Garner in a like a practice game, like a social game in the UK, and I remember him coming into bowl, and there's obviously, mate, he's a lot older than me, but I was just sitting there thinking, after the first ball he bowled, the bounce, and he was past the sight screen, I was just thinking, imagine have to stand in front of that when he was quick. Then when you do stand in front of that Marshall, then holding, you got an all new respect for the era of Taylor, Border, Steve Waugh, Mark Waugh, having to stand in front of guys like Ambrose and that present time and time again, because you could not, the ball was coming over the top of the sight screen. I know we laugh about it, but it was so uncomfortable, someone that tall. It felt like he was just dropping the ball right in front of you. He was a monster.
My goodness. I've just thought of something we can do through social media. And sorry, Sammy, I'm going to do it to you. In the lead up to this Windies series, I think we should find out who our Willow Talk listeners' favourite ever West Indian cricketer is. So I don't know how we do this with a poll, and we put up 3 or 4
There's
names
one answer
and
to
then
that,
have
is
an
there?
other. Well, there's Viv.
There you go.
There's Viv. There is Brian Lara. There
Sobers.
is Malcolm Marshall, Curtly Ambrose, Gary Sobers. My personal favourite, because I just loved his action and his nickname as well, Michael Holding.
Whispering Death.
Whispering Death. That's the greatest nickname in cricket history. But, I mean, who do you put in your top 3 out of that lot? Or if there's someone, even from a keeper's perspective, the guy who changed how agile you have to be behind the stumps, and he was a tad theatrical, the great Jeffrey Dujon, just diving around everywhere, taking screamers.
Well, it's hard to put a top 3, but Viv's in there, Sobers in there, and the other one I love to watch, and I thought he was one of the great entertainers, and he brought a real science to batting. If you talk to him, he was Brian Lara. The some of the innings he played, and you have to also remember he was against a red hot Australian team at the time, but if he could control the game off his own bat, even when the batters weren't quite the stand you'd think for Test cricket. If he went off, he brought the West Indies back in the game. So it'll be interesting to see what the listeners like. Surely Viv has to be number 1.